The closing bell ringing in just about 10 minutes from now, and the markets are a mixed bag going into the weekend, as you can see. The Dow, though, on pace for its longest winning streak since December 19th. The S&P also looking to hold on to its gains as the Nasdaq marginally lower, down about 0.1%. The Russell, too, down 0.75%. Now, for the week, the Dow is set for its fourth straight weekly win. The S&P and Nasdaq also up 3 weeks in a row. So the strength over the last month still there. OK, let's move on now. Israel still moving forward with its mission to take out Hamas in Rafah in southern Gaza. So far, there has not been a full-scale assault, as the Biden administration has threatened to withhold weapons if Israeli forces make that push with civilians in the line of fire. The Israeli military says it has destroyed some Hamas tunnels and secured the main border crossing with Egypt in that area. Joining me now to talk about all of this is former National Security Advisor to Vice President Mike Pence, retired Army Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. General, great to have you here. Let's get right down to it. How much of an impact would it have on Israel and its aim to eliminate Hamas if, in fact, the U.S. withholds weapons?
Yeah, Ashley, thanks for having me. Well, it's rather significant because the reason they're using the bigger bombs is because they've got to penetrate buildings and they've got to get to the tunnels. And it takes big bombs to do it. The other thing they're basically holding up are what's called, we call it JDAM, Joint Directed Air Munitions. And what that is, it's a targeting kit that you strap on to a dumb bomb that has no guidance to it and allows you to hit a target within 10 meters of what you're aiming at. And that allows you to have much more precision than you do normally. And that cuts down on collateral damage, read civilian casualties. And that's what they're trying to do. And I think what happened is they're using the issue of weapons to try to send a message of there's moral equivalence, and there's not. I mean, there are good guys and bad guys in this fight. And the good guys are the Israelis, and they've tried very, very hard to cut back on collateral damage. And when you look at statistically, you look at it, they've done better than a lot of armies have ever done in combat in cities, which is always hard, it's always tough, because it's floor to floor and door to door. And actually, you're going to get collateral damage whether you like it or not. That's just the nature of city fighting. It's hard to say, but that's the way it is.
I understand. Now, the Israelis have said that the Biden directive, if you like, is basically just encouraging its enemies. I mean, is that a win for Hamas?
Yeah. Sure it is, because I've always said you never give your adversary a seam or a gap between allies. And this is a seam and a gap that we've created, we the United States, between us and Israel. And so Hamas and all her allies basically capitalize on this. And it's in the world of public opinion that you see this coming out. So, of course, you never want to do that. If you have a problem with an ally, pick up the phone very quietly and talk about it, but you don't do it publicly. We've done it publicly. And what we've actually done, we've had some moral equivocation, meaning, well, there's good on both sides, there's bad on both sides. No, there's not. Hamas invaded Israel. They killed over 1,000 people. They took hostages as well. Oh, by the way, Ashley, they killed Americans, and there are American hostages. And we still don't know how many hostages are still alive. Started at 100, now we're at 44, now down to 30. We don't know who's alive and who's dead because Hamas has not allowed anybody to show proof of life, and the International Red Cross hasn't even gone in as well. So there's a moral issue as well. And my recommendation to this administration is you step back, kind of look at yourself and say, you need to go in full up and say to the Israelis, we are behind you full up until you eradicate Hamas leadership. You're not going to get every terrorist, but get the leadership.
General, before we have to let you go, I got to talk about Russia-Ukraine, which it just continues to grind on, of course. How do you think this plays out? We're talking, talking about a Russian offensive coming up and Ukraine getting some more help from the U.S. But how does this play out? Because it seems like it's a long, drawn-out slog with little end in sight.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, they're in what's called an attrition war. And with Russia, that's a really hard fight because they've got manpower and equipment. And frankly, the Russians were on their back foot about a year ago, and I think they had some opportunities to basically beat them. And they were slow with arms deliveries. Now where we're at is the Russians have got energy, and the Russians are moving forward. The Russians have a lot of confidence right now because they believe they're on the offense, Ukraine's on the defense. This is, very honestly, Ashley, this is not good. And this is going to be a hard summer, I believe, for the Ukrainians because the Russians are going to keep trying to provide some type of offensive capability. And here's the place I tell you to look at. Watch Kharkiv in the north. That is so close to the Russian border. It's a major city, and that is a place I would not be surprised if the Russians want to make a major effort in Ukraine. It's going to come there.
Wow. Well, you know, bit by bit, they are certainly, taking that land. We're going to have to leave it there. But General Keith Kellogg, always great to talk to you, General, and appreciate your input on this.